We have breaking news from behind the scenes at the Houston Astros front office here in Houston, Texas. The Astros have reportedly offered Alex Bregman a 6-year contract worth around $156 million, which is pretty good if you ask me. But now, real quick, I do want to mention before we get into this video, guys, I apologize. I'm a little bit late to the party. This news broke out this past Thursday, but you guys aren't seeing it until Monday, which is the day that the winter meetings are commencing in Dallas. So what exactly can we make out of this over the past 4 days worth of information that we have gathered from this? We're going to talk all about it here in this video. Stay tuned. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Astros off-season content, I guess. So here in this video, we're going to be discussing some breaking news that we had heard for this past Thursday, that the Astros have offered Alex Bregman a 6-year contract worth $156 million. Now, if Bregman accepts this contract, which, I mean, there's a slight chance he probably will, but, I mean, at the same time, it would not shock me if he didn't. There is still a chance he might not. But if he does accept this would be the largest Astros contract as far as dollars are concerned, and it would surpass the $151 million extension that Altuve had received with his extension back in 2018. This was, of course, the first of his 2 extensions that he has received since that date. Of course, that extension I was just talking about has since expired, and the extension that he had received last offseason will start this upcoming season. So just to clarify that. Now, under Jim Crane, and many Astros fans today know this all too well, the Astros have never offered more than 5 years to a free agent, and the largest deal he's given to any player is that extension to Altuve that I was just talking about. But despite that, the Astros had operated with a top 5 payroll last season and exceeded the competitive balance tax. For the first time, which Crane did admit that Altuve's plea at the end of the season for the club to re-sign Bregman did catch his attention, but again, the decision is going to be coming down to money and not sentiment. But taking a look at what Bregman has done for the Astros over the past decade plus, there is no doubt on what he means to this team and the organization as a whole. He's been a core player during the Astros' run of success in the past decade plus to this point. That's culminated with 2 World Series titles, and last season he had slashed .260 with 26 home runs and 75 ribbies en route to winning his first career Gold Glove at third base. He also, of course, became one of the team's biggest leaders. He's basically a pillar in the clubhouse. There's no denying that. And I mean, I can't blame Astros fans for being upset if he walks away, which is still a possibility. But at the same time, the Astros do have a contingency plan in place if he signs elsewhere. Now, Bregman is believed to be seeking a deal closer to $200 million, and if that's the case, then that would price out the Astros, considering their stance on not offering such a deal. And if that's the case, then it would be time for the Astros to move on from him. And now that Juan Soto, as of literally about an hour ago or so, as of when I'm recording this video, has now decided on his future, there could be the chance that Alex Bregman might be the next free agent to decide his future. But again, we'll see what happens. Now, if Alex Bregman does re-sign elsewhere, then there's no question as to what the biggest need for the Astros is going to be this offseason. And again, if the Astros don't re-sign him, then there is the possibility that they could make a splash at either third base or first base, but certainly not both. So we'll see how that goes. But taking a look real quick at first base, or at least like if the Astros either don't re-sign Bregman or don't spend any big money at third base, then they'll be more aggressive in looking for upgrades at first base, which is a position where the Astros had posted the 5th lowest OPS at .651 in the major leagues last season, which is awful. To be fair though, part of that of course did not help the fact that Jose Abreu got off to such an atrocious start, probably having one of the worst major league seasons of his career, ended up getting jettisoned by the Astros in mid-May. And ever since then, John Singleton has received a majority of the reps since then. But Singleton's inability to hit left-handed pitching this season, posting a .457 OPS in 82 plate appearances against lefties this season, has left him best suited as more of a platoon bat who can play against righties. Now, to counter that, the Astros have discussed some interest in free agent first baseman Christian Walker from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, taking a look here at Christian Walker, he is a 3-time Gold Glove Award winner. He did miss about a month or so with an oblique strain, But he did belt 26 home runs in 100 plus games that he played, and also hitting an OPS north of 800, his third straight season doing so. So not a bad signing, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't mind if Christian Walker would be our starting first baseman, and then maybe John Singleton could certainly be a good backup in case, But obviously, of course, maybe say if Singleton ends up starting at first base, you got Christian Walker on your bench, bring him up as a pinch hitter, or even Zach DeZenzo, which is another option, which is another in-house option if the Astros don't end up spending anything at first base. Obviously, like I said, the Astros' needs are obvious: third base and first base, and then also starting in relief pitching. Now, pitching is probably the least of my concerns. I mean, if the Astros can get something done in that department, that would be great, especially because Yusei Kikuchi, who the Astros had acquired in a trade from the Toronto Blue Jays at the trade deadline, he ended up signing a 3-year deal with the Angels, which is not something I'm a fan of, not just because he's not with the Astros anymore, but also he is still maintaining in our division, which is already tough in and of itself with the Rangers getting back into the mix, and also the Mariners, and of course the A's. So you don't want to sleep on the Angels this season, that's for sure. But again, I'm going to be discussing more team spotlights as next season rolls around next spring. So stay tuned for that. But like I said, dude, the Astros needs this offseason are obvious. And the amount of holes that they have this offseason, it's more than they've had to fill in past winters. But the Bregman decision looms above everything else. Like, if they're able to re-sign him, and it might take a team record deal to get it done, any remaining upgrades likely would probably not be very significant. Even if Alex Bregman signing is the one thing that they do this offseason, I'd be okay with that. If we go into next season with our starting opening day roster, like, mostly intact, like, it would virtually be the same as it was last season. So, or I could say, this year, I guess, considering it's still 2024. But again, if the Astros aren't able to re-sign Bregman, they'll still be in a position to make a splash at either first base or third base, but likely not both. So let's take a look at some options for Houston at third base, assuming Bregman signs somewhere else. And personally, there's 3 ways that I think that the Astros can go about this. They can either make a trade, they can sign a free agent, or they can fill internally, which basically means use in-house options to fill. Now, that is something that the Astros have done over the years for free agents that have left. Obviously, of course, Jim Crane's skill of, not offering huge deals to free agents is a skill that has paid off in recent years with Garrett Cole walking away, George Springer walking away the next year, and Carlos Correa the year after that. And again, that's a skill that has paid off because the Astros have still continued to win in recent years despite those guys walking away. And if you take a look at what those 3 players have done, the only player that has actually made it to the World Series was Garrett Cole. And it took the signing of Juan Soto to actually carry him there. Because if you look at what Garrett Cole did in Game 5 of that World Series, which was an elimination game for the Yankees, he choked a 5-0 lead that the Yankees had given him that night. Which, if you ask me, is certainly not something that a Cy Young pitcher would do. I'm a little bit surprised to see that. Honestly, man, like I said in my previous video, I'm actually kind of glad that had happened because now Garrett Cole is going to be an image of what was the most, embarrassing meltdown in Yankees history. But like I said, the only player who's even made it so deep in the playoffs was him. Everybody else, George Springer and Carlos Correa, they have not even made it to the ALCS with their new teams. In fact, the Twins and Blue Jays have only had 1 playoff appearance each since they both left the Astros. Like I said earlier, there's 3 ways that the Astros can go about this: signing a free agent, making a trade, or just fill internally with what you have on either your major league roster or something down in your minor league systems. So we're going to talk about each of those in that order, starting with number 1 with signing a free agent. If you take a look at Alex Bregman, he is basically the class of the third base free agent market. And with him out of the picture, it drops off significantly after that. Because many of the available free agents at third base profile more as utility players than an everyday third baseman. This group, of course, includes Josh Rojas, which is a former Astros farmhand, Paul DeJong, and Brandon Jury, and also Kike Hernandez. These, of course, are also pretty decent men. But another option that the Astros are considering is George Polanco from the Seattle Mariners, their divisional rival. He played mostly middle infield in the big leagues, but he could certainly play third base or first base if the Astros were to get him. Now George Polanco, of course, was a switch hitter. He had a rather tough season for most of the first half. But after the second half had begun, he finished it on the upswing, posting a .724 OPS in 63 games from early July to the end of the season, hitting 11 of what would eventually be 16 home runs in a year where he was coming off of knee surgery. But another free agent that is at the time that these articles were written was Willie Adams. He had received a QO from the Brewers, and he had previously been linked to the Astros, but unfortunately we can't really talk much about him in this video because now, as of when I'm recording this, he is now officially inked a 3-year deal with the San Francisco Giants, which, if you ask me, is kind of a shame considering he would have actually made a pretty decent fit for the Astros. I mean, he had received NL MVP votes after he had posted a slash line of 251, 331, and 462 last season with 32 home runs, 112 ribbies, and 21 stolen bases. That is honestly pretty good, and it's a shame that the Astros aren't going to get him. Granted, he was a shortstop for the Brewers, and we already have a shortstop in Jeremy Pena, and I mean, we could probably slide him over to third base if the Astros were able to get him. Option number 2 for the Astros is making a trade. Now, the big names on the trade market this offseason are Alec Bohm of the Phillies and also Nolan Arenado of the St. Louis Cardinals. Both of these guys, of course, would come at a big cost, and for a team like the Astros that has such limited prospect depth, I mean, this would obviously come at a pretty huge cost. And if you look at what Dana Brown has done over the years for the Astros, we primarily brought in Dana Brown to help him rebuild our farm system. And over the past 2-3 years since we hired him as our general manager, he's kind of been tearing it apart, if you ask me. And I mean, I don't really know if getting a guy like this would be worth it. But Nolan Arenado has 3 years and $74 million remaining on his contract, along with a full no trade clause. So that means that he would control his destiny, assuming the Cardinals would want to trade him. But Alec Bohm this year was named an all-star, and despite that, he did struggle late in the season and was eventually benched in Game 2 of the NLDS against the Mets. But there's a lot of reasons for a team to want him in a trade. Namely, his offensive upside and his solid defense at the hot corner. Which, I mean, whenever I think of solid defense at such a hot corner like third base, I usually think of solid, just barehanded plays. I mean, Alex Bregman, we've seen him make several of these throughout his career with the Astros. And personally, if we can't get a guy that makes plays like this, then that's going to be a problem whenever we have those infield tappers hit to us, and there's not really much guys out there that can make those plays besides Alex Bregman. And if Nolan Arenado can make plays like this, then I would say just giving up 3 or 4 prospects for him would maybe be worth it. But, I mean, again, that's just me. I'm not sure if that's something the Astros would do. The other third baseman who could be on the trade market would be Ryan McMahon of the Rockies and also Brett Baty of the Mets. So we could see if the Astros could end up making a trade for either of those guys. But again, we'll see. The third and final option for the Astros this offseason would be to fill internally. Now, this would definitely be the least satisfying outcome for the Astros, considering that Mauricio Dubon is really the only in-house option that they would feel comfortable with to start the season. And again, if you look at what Mauricio Dubon has done for us as a utility man, he has started at games at 7 different positions last season. The only two positions he didn't start at, pitcher and catcher. 9 of those games, for reference, were at third base. So not that bad. Ideally, the Astros would again like to keep Dubon in that super utility role in which he's excelled at the past few years. Of course, winning a Gold Glove the previous offseason. But another option the Astros could look at is Zach DeZenzo, the club's number 5 ranked prospect. He made his major league debut He of course made his MLB debut this season, and he played mostly first base and left field in winter ball in Puerto Rico. Bryce Matthews, the team's number 3 prospect, who had reached AAA this past season, had split time between second and third base in Puerto Rico, and he has a .589 OPS, but likely not an option for the opening day roster. And then lastly, there's also third baseman Shea Whitcomb, who is the club's number 14 prospect. He also made his MLB debut last season and was named the club's minor league player of the year in 2024 after he had hit 7 percentage points shy of a .300 batting average with AAA Sugar Land en route to their Pacific Coast League championship with 25 home runs, 91 ribbies, 26 stolen bases, and a .908 OPS. However, he only had 9 hits in 20 games with the Astros and was then optioned to the minors after making 4 errors at third base in a game against the Mariners in late September. Now, going back to option number 2 here, where the Astros could potentially make a trade, they've been getting a lot of calls about trades, but they're reluctant to deal any major league talent, which, I mean, that doesn't mean they're not going to do it. But because, I mean, the addition of Josh Hader in last January and Brian Abreu's emergence have made veteran reliever Ryan Presley, who is set to earn $14 million next season, a possible trade candidate. which I would personally not mind if the Astros had traded Presley. Because, I mean, even though he does have a full trade clause in his contract, so he will have some say in his next destination, assuming he even approves a deal. But he has really not been as dominant over the past 2 years as he has been during his All-Star seasons, during the past two full seasons prior to that, which were 2 All-Star seasons for him. But he would certainly be a great bullpen upgrade and also a short-term commitment for a lot of teams out there. Some other options the Astros could be considering would be Chas McCormick and Jake Myers, as those 2 guys are also drawing a lot of interest. But another question that the Astros could throw up in the air is, could we be trading Kyle Tucker or even Framber Valdez just a year before they hit free agency? Now, I mean, I personally feel like that we really should not be doing that. The only reason where we probably should be doing that is if we find ourselves having a down year this upcoming season. But, again, that's just me. But the burning question of this video, will Houston re-sign Bregman? There's no doubt that the Astros have called re-signing Bregman their top off-season priority. Dana Brown did mention it in a press conference that was held this past weekend. I mean, he's currently the second best position player on the market behind Juan Soto, who, as of when I'm recording this video, is now off the market. So it's likely just going to be a matter of time until we get a clearer picture of his future. There's no doubt that the Astros desperately want him back. And of course, Altuve, who had gotten extended this past offseason, has pleaded for his return. But at the end of the day, we all know that Jim Crane's going to have the last word and not one of our teammates. So again, like I said, the current offer is $157 million. Is he going to accept or is he going to decline? We're going to find out. Hopefully in the next video that I make, I get to talk about the Astros re-signing Alex Bregman. That's going to be the next video that I post. It's going to be posted and hopefully recorded just as soon as the news breaks out on where Alex Bregman signs. That's going to do it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more of these videos over the course of this offseason, consider hitting that subscribe button. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next one. Go Stros.